The last engineer, the distress music. Beacon had been broadcasting for 72 hours when the Meridian Consensus finally picked it up. Captain Vogue Friend studied the signal with all four of his optical sensors, mandibles clicking in confusion. "This makes no sense," he said to his navigation officer. "That frequency hasn't been used in over 2,000 cycles. The beacon originated from a dead planet in the outer reaches, a world the Galactic Council had marked as uninhabitable after its sun began dying. No one lived there anymore. No one should have been there at all, but the signal was clear, repeating the same message in ancient coalition standard. Engineering assistance required. Immediate response requested." Bakken was a Calvarian, a species known for their strict adherence to protocol and salvage law. If someone was stranded on that dying world, regulations demanded he investigate. Besides, there might be valuable technology to claim. The Meridian Consensus descended through the planet's thin atmosphere. The surface below was a wasteland of rust-cold sand and crumbling structures. Cities that had once housed millions now stood empty, their towers leaning like broken teeth against a fading orange sky. The beacon led them to a massive industrial complex on the edge of what had been an ocean. Now it was just a flat expanse of dried salt stretching to the horizon. "Life signs?" Vakrin asked. One, his sensor officer reported, faint. Inside the central facility, they found him in a maintenance bay 3 levels underground, surrounded by machines that should not have been running. The human was old by his species standards, his hair white, his face marked with deep lines. He wore a stained jumpsuit with a name patch that read Marcus Chen, chief engineer. He was welding something when they entered, sparks flying in the dim light. He didn't look up. "About time," he said. "I've been waiting 3 days. Vach Friend's translator struggled with the human's accent. Humans were rare in this sector, and this one spoke an older dialect. "You sent the distress beacon?" Vach Friend asked. "Distress?" "No." The human finally looked up, pushing safety goggles onto his forehead. "I sent a work order. The primary coolant pump is failing, and I can't fix it alone. I need another pair of hands." Vach Friend looked around the facility. The machines hung steadily, their displays showing optimal performance. Lights flickered but held. Somewhere deep in the complex, he could hear the rhythmic pulse of a reactor. "Why are you here?" Vakfriend asked. "This planet was evacuated 2,000 cycles ago. 247 years. Marcus corrected. "And yeah, everyone left except me. Someone had to keep the lights on. For what purpose? There is no one here." Marcus set down his welding torch and picked up a data pad. The evacuation was rushed. 83 million people left in less than 2 years. They took what they could, but they couldn't take everything. The council promised they'd come back for the rest, for the industrial equipment, the data archives, the biological samples. They said 5 years, maybe 10. That was over 2 millennia ago, Bachfriend said quietly. "I know." Marcus' voice was steady, "but the promise was made, and this equipment is worth saving. The genetic vault alone contains seeds and embryos from 6,000 species. The data cores hold scientific research spanning 4 centuries. And the fusion reactor I've been maintaining could power a colony for 100 years. You have been here alone for 2,000 years." Vakran's mandibles went Still, it wasn't possible. Humans didn't live that long, not the whole time. The original engineering crew stayed behind. 47 of us. We drew lots to see who would take the first shift. I went into cryo. After 20 years, came out 50 years later. Then another engineer took their shift. Marcus looked at his hands. The last one, Sarah Kimura, died about 600 years ago. Equipment failure. After that it was just me. I do 20 years on 50 in cryo, but the cryopods have been failing. I can't risk going under anymore. How long have you been awake? This time 93 years. Vac friend felt something unfamiliar. All this human had spent centuries maintaining a facility for people who would never return, protecting resources for a council that had forgotten this place existed. The council will not come, Bakrin said. They believe everything here was lost. Then I guess it's good you showed up, Marcus said, because that coolant pump really does need fixing, and when it fails the reactor goes critical. That genetic vault I mentioned, it's temperature controlled. If we lose power, 2,000 years of preservation dies in about 6 hours. Marcus handed VFR a tool belt. So are you going to help me, or are we going to keep talking while everything falls apart? For a long moment Vakrin stared at the human, then he took the belt. Show me the pump, he said. Promise kept. The coolant pump was a monster 3 stories tall and older than most civilizations in the Galactic Council. Marcus led Vatch through a maze of corridors past machines that hummed and rattled with age, but somehow kept working. Built to last, Marcus said, patting a control panel as they passed. Pre-collapse engineering. They don't make them like this anymore. Clearly, Bakrin said, watching a pressure gauge that fluctuated wildly but stayed within safe parameters. I am surprised any of this still functions. Functions is a generous word, Marcus replied. I've been cannibalizing parts from secondary systems for the last 300 years. The recycling plant hasn't worked since before I was born. Life support in Sector C through M is completely offline. But the important stuff, the vault, the archives, the main reactor, those I keep running. They descended another level. The temperature dropped noticeably, and Vatch friend's thermal sensors registered the change. They were getting closer to the reactor core. How do you maintain all of this alone? Vatch friend asked. Marcus laughed, a dry sound without much humor. I don't sleep much, and I've gotten very good at predictive maintenance. I know every sound this place makes, every vibration. When something's about to fail, I feel it. The pump chamber was a cathedral of pipes and valves, all converging on a central unit that throbbed with mechanical effort. Even to Vagrin's untrained eye, the pump looked exhausted. Metal fatigue showed in hairline cracks along the housing, and a rhythmic knocking suggested internal damage. The main bearing is worn, Marcus explained, pulling up a diagnostic on his data pad. I fabricated a replacement 6 months ago, but installing it requires shutting down the primary loop. I can't do that and monitor the secondary systems at the same time. If the secondary loop fails while the primary is offline, we have about 4 minutes before the reactor enters cascade failure, 4 minutes to evacuate, 4 minutes before this facility and everything in a 20 km radius becomes a crater. Marcus corrected. The reactor is old, but it's still got enough punch to make a very big hole. Bakrin's mandibles clicked nervously. This seems extremely dangerous. It is, but the alternative is letting the pump fail on its own, which could happen tomorrow or next week, at least. This way we're in control. Marcus pulled on heavy work gloves. I'll handle the replacement. I need you in the control room, monitoring the secondary loop. If coolant pressure drops below 70%, you hit the emergency override. That'll buy us an extra 90 seconds. 90 seconds does not seem like much time. It's not, but I've done this kind of work for a very long time, Captain. I'm vast. Vanrin wanted to argue to point out the insanity of this plan, but something in Marcus' eyes stopped him. This human had kept a promise for 2,000 years. The least Vatch friend could do was trust him for the next few hours. The control room was a semicircle of ancient monitors and switches that predated modern touch interfaces. VRN's sensor officer would have called it primitive, but as Marcus talked him through each system, Vanrin began to see the elegance in the design. Everything was manual, physical, impossible to hack or corrupt. It was engineering from an age that understood failure was inevitable and planned for it. Ready. Marcus' voice crackled through a radio headset. Another ancient technology. Ready, Bakrin confirmed, his 4 eyes locked on the pressure gauges. Shutting down primary loop in 3, 2, 1. Now. The change was immediate. The steady hum that had filled the facility shifted to a higher pitch as secondary systems took the load. Pressure reading spiked, then stabilized at 82%. Vatch friend watched temperature indicators climb slowly but steadily. Primary loop offline, Marcus reported. Beginning bearing replacement. Minutes crawled by. Vakrin had never been good at waiting. His species prized efficiency and speed, not patience, but he forced himself to remain still, to watch the numbers, to trust that the human knew what he was doing. Secondary pressure dropping. Bakrin said 80%. 78. 76. Expected. Marcus said his breathing was labored, the sound of physical effort. Just keep watching. Tell me if it hits. 72. 74. 73. 72. Hold on, almost there. Just need to. Loud clang echoed through the facility, followed by a sound like tearing metal. Marcus. Silence on the radio, then a groan. Distinctly human and distinctly pained. Marcus respond, I'm okay. The human's voice came back tight with pain, dropped. The old bearing on my foot, pretty sure. Something's broken, but I can still work. Give me 60 seconds. Vatch friend looked at the pressure gauge. 71%. 70. 69. Pressure at 69%, he said, keeping his voice steady. I see it. 30 seconds. 68. 67. Temperature readings were climbing into the red zone now. VOC friend's hand hovered over the emergency override, knowing that triggering it might them 90 more seconds, or it might cascade into total failure. 66. Marcus. Done. Bringing primary loop back online. Now, the hum shifted again, dropping in pitch as the primary system engaged. Pressure readings fluctuated wildly, then began to climb. 68. 71. 75. 80. The numbers steadied at 84%, well within safe parameters. Vakrin realized he had been holding his breath. He released it slowly. Primary loop stable, he said. All systems nominal. Good. Marcus's voice was weaker. Now that's good. I'm going to sit down for a minute. Vakrin found him in the pump chamber, sitting with his back against a coolant pipe, his right foot swelling visibly inside his boot. The old bearing lay beside him, a massive chunk of worn metal that had probably weighed 40 kilos. You dropped that on your foot? Vakrin asked. It slipped, Marcus said, managing a weak smile. He happens. You continued working with a broken foot. Had to. The job wasn't finished. Vanrin knelt beside the human, examining the injury with his medical scanner. 3 broken bones, severe tissue damage. 4 a human of Marcus' age. This was serious. You need medical attention. Vakrin said, I've got a medical bay on level 2, basic stuff, but it'll do. You need a real doctor. You need to leave this place. Marcus looked up at the ceiling, at the pipes and cables that he had maintained for longer than some civilizations had existed. Can't he? Said simply, someone has to keep the lights on, the engineer's legacy. Vach Friend spent the next 3 days aboard the Meridian Consensus, thinking. His crew waited for orders to depart, to return to their salvage routes and leave this dying world behind. But Vach Friend kept delaying. On the 4th day he returned to the facility alone. He found Marcus in the genetic vault, a vast chamber kept at precisely controlled temperature and humidity. Rows upon rows of storage containers stretched into the distance, each one labeled with species names, planetary origins, collection dates. Some of the labels were so old they had faded to illegibility. Marcus was running diagnostics on a storage unit, his injured foot in a medical brace. He looked up when Vakrin entered. Back already? Marcus asked. Thought you'd be halfway across the sector by now. I sent a message to the Galactic Council. Vakrin said I told them what I found here, what you have been protecting. Marcus' expression didn't change. And what did they say? They are sending a recovery team. It will arrive in approximately 40 days. They want to relocate everything. The genetic vault, the data archives, all of it. They are calling it the greatest archaeological discovery in recent history. 40 days, Marcus repeated. He looked around the vault at the life's work he had protected for so long. That's good. That's really good. They also want you to come with them. There are medical facilities that can treat your injuries, extend your life. You could see the worlds. These seeds will grow on the colonies. These resources will build. Marcus was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was soft. You know what the hardest part was? Not the loneliness, not the fear that the systems would fail. It was wondering if any of it mattered, if anyone would ever come, if the promise meant anything at all. He gestured at the vault around them. Sarah, the last engineer before me, she used to say that promises aren't just words, they're pieces of the future we're trying to build. Every day we kept this place running, we were building that future, even if we never got to see it. You will see it now. Bakken said the council is already planning where to deploy these resources. 3 colony worlds have requested seeds from the vault. The University of Proxima wants to study the data archives. Your work will save lives, Marcus. Millions of them. Marcus smiled, a genuine expression this time. Then I guess we kept our promise. There is something else, Vach Friend said. I spoke with my crew. We are not leaving for 40 days. We are staying to help you maintain the facility until the recovery team arrives. You don't have to do that. I know, but I want to. Vatch friends. Mandibles clicked in what his species considered a smile. Besides, you said it yourself, you need another pair of hands. I have 4 over the next weeks. Vatch friends' crew integrated themselves into the facility's operations. His engineer studied Marcus' maintenance logs with something approaching reverence. His medical officer treated Marcus' foot and insisted on regular checkups. His navigation officer helped catalog the data archives, discovering research that had been lost to the wider galaxy for millennia. And Vatch friend himself worked alongside Marcus, learning the rhythms of the ancient machinery, understanding how this one human had kept an impossible promise for an impossible length of time. On the 38th day, Marcus led Vakran to a small room he had never shown anyone. It was filled with personal effects, belongings of the engineers who had stayed behind. Photos, journals, tools marked with names of people long dead. When Sarah died, I put her things here, Marcus said, and all the others before her. I wanted to remember that I wasn't doing this alone, that we all made a choice together to keep the promise. He picked up a worn notebook, its pages filled with handwriting. This was kept by the first chief engineer, woman named Aisha Ayanquo. She wrote down why we stayed. I read it. Sometimes when things got hard, Marcus opened to a marked page and read aloud. We are the last engineers of a dead world, guardians of a future we will never see. Our names will be forgotten. Our sacrifice will go unrecorded. But the seeds we protect will grow in distant soil. The knowledge we preserve will light new minds, and somewhere in a time we cannot imagine, someone will benefit from our choice to stay. That is enough. That has to be enough. Vakran felt moisture in his optical sensors, an unfamiliar sensation. It was enough, he said quietly, and you will not be forgotten. I will make certain of it. The recovery team arrived on schedule, a fleet of ships with climate-controlled cargo holds and preservation specialists. They worked with careful efficiency, loading the genetic vault, copying the data archives, dismantling equipment that would be rebuilt on living worlds. On the final day, Marcus stood in the reactor chamber one last time. Vatch friend stood beside him. I should shut it down, Marcus said. No point leaving it running now. No, Vatch friend said. Leave it on. This facility kept its promise. Let it stand as a monument to that. Marcus nodded slowly. A monument to the engineers who stayed behind. Like that, they walked out together. Marcus leaning on a cane now, his injured foot healing but still weak. Ship that would carry him to a new life waited on the surface, along with containers holding 2,000 years of preserved hope. As they lifted off, Marcus looked down at the facility one last time. The lights were still on, steady and bright against the fading orange sky. Goodbye, old friend, he whispered. You did good. 6 months later, Bakran attended the council ceremony where Marcus received the Keeper's Medal, the highest civilian honor the galaxy could bestow. The old human looked uncomfortable in form clothes, his white hair neatly combed, his hands clasped behind his back. Council director spoke of duty and sacrifice, of promises kept across impossible spans of time, and when Marcus stepped forward to accept the medal, he said only 7 words. I was just doing my job, but Vatch friend knew the truth. Marcus Chen had done far more than his job. He had shown the galaxy what it meant to be human, to keep a promise when no one was watching, to maintain hope when all reason said to give up. The seeds from the vault were already growing on 3 worlds. Data archives had sparked 17 new research initiatives. And on a dying planet in the outer reaches, a facility still hummed with power, its lights burning bright, a monument to the engineers who refused to let go. The promise had been kept, and the future they had protected was finally beginning to bloom.